Okay, we'll go ahead and the board. Any comments to this point? Consider an act on the request for adjustments to the crossing some charges imposed by the district.
I don't have any.
What, like,
Sorry?
rate adjustments, nothing for this.
Good timing.
Yeah. Moving on to the consent agenda, project E items, correct, like the move further discussion. If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Regular agenda, number 8. Review and act on the district's draft fiscal year 2023-24 operating budget and recommended water and sewer rate structure.
All right. Last month, I presented the draft memo and the draft budget. This month, I have the final for consideration, the memo and the budget. Did want to point out just a couple minor things that changed from the one you saw last month on the budget. On the back side, on the expense side, in the tan area, up at the second from the top, 53.03. We added about $7,000 in there for lead and copper rule compliance that we're going through over this next year. That'll be due in October 2024. And then on the sewer side, we rolled over some expenses that were in last year's budget that were not completed through the sanitary sewer project. And so there was about about $40,000 that rolled over into that from last month. Other than that, on the water and sewer rate side, last month's budget, we had a 5% estimate on water and sewer rate adjustments. We bumped that to 6%. And then Director Martin had noted that on the water and sewer rate, we might consider in a particular tier, making it more consistent with the rest of the rates, and we've done that as well. That was tier 2, moving it from $2.08 to $2.95 instead of $2.85. So those are all of the changes or differences from last month.
Discussion.
So a couple of observations. So last month, not this month, unfortunately, but it was for 2 months. I went through and did a gross margin analysis, cost analysis, if you will, for this water side of it and the sewer side of it. And the range is interesting. First of all, I took out Metro because they're really not comparable to residential districts, and I threw out 46 and 36 because they don't use the same rates as we do. Water and sewer rates are different. So the remaining 7 months for the water side of it, this is through 10 months now. The cost range is 79.9% to 85.8%. That's fairly tame. It's about a 6% differential. You might ask the question, well, how does that occur? And this month 67 is 85.4. So we're saying minus. The reason I believe is because it's tied to yard watering. If yards are smaller, you can use enough water. And I think that if we went through and really good, even deeply, you could probably justify that. And various modes and sizes of the lots. But interesting data. On the sewer side, again, for 10 months, one was even tighter. It was 96.8% to 98.5%. And you know, the 98.5%, that's us. We're the highest again on that side. So when we were looking at the new water and sewer rate structure, it's important, or close to me at least, to make sure that there's a healthy bump on the low end of that tier 1, which is where the bulk and bottom revenues can come from. And I think that was up to about 11%. Tier 2 was stuck at about 1.7. And then this was really out of line. And so that's changed that Eric was talking about. So I think this will help normalize. It's some additional revenue where the costs were in our case, in all cases. So, and that last change on tier two, that hasn't really been incorporated into your revenue numbers forecast.
It has.
It did.
It's a 6% increase overall
Overall,
Okay,
to the typical customer.
okay. Of course, as we just pointed out.
Very, yes.
yeah, exactly. And that's the big variable on this is on the revenue side is we have a dry year, then what revenue is gonna be high. If it's low, and it'll swing for sure. I will point out though that, one of the other indicators that we look at, is budget coverage on a month basis. And so, this is projecting just over 8 months of coverage. So I would say, just point out that that is pretty healthy. We certainly want to see it above 6 with the growing infrastructure, aging infrastructure renewal, that we're going to be seeing over the next, years. I would rather see that at 9 or even 12. But you're in good shape. I mean, this budget projects starting at about 7.5 and actually works its way to 8 in a good trend in that direction. We can't make it up all in 1 year, but we slowly just keep watching, the budget. We can work through that and get to a good spot. So 8's pretty healthy. You're in the top tier of the other MUDs in terms of that regard. So.
Yeah, currently we have 10. Any other? Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
All right.
It was nay. Number 9, conduct public hearing regarding the district's intent to levy a 2023 tax rate.
All right, so y'all have drill here. This is the second step of the tax rate adoption process, which is page 18. That notice that you approved at last month's meeting has been published in the Courier, reflecting the proposed tax rate of 14728. That we can adjourn the regular meeting, open the public hearing for any comments regarding the proposed tax rate.
We'll do that. So, hearing none, we'll go back to
Very good. All right, we'll go back to the regular agenda and move on to item 2, which is to consider the adoption of it. That is comprised of 0.085 for debt service and 0.06 to 28 operations.
any discussion on those rates.
222. Yeah.
Okay,
0622.
We have a motion to
Three, two.
change the rates.
Second.
Favor aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Number 11, approval and execution of the men's district information form.
That updates your tax rate. Motion.
Do you need a motion? Yes. Do we have a second motion? Second.
Where's the
Number 12, receive the regular monthly. I do not have anything covered, but Dan does have one.
So just one item to remind you of is October 24th, the evening at 5 p.m. We're going to have all-mud meeting regarding the wastewater strategic planning. So we've had a lot of recent discussions on the AC water line stuff, but we want to remind you that a large program planning for the wastewater side also that's critical. So encourage y'all to come to that meeting. We're going to discuss the update on the overall master plan and try to like a couple of estimates. So we should kind of name some pieces for that.
But open to anyone other than the director.
Yeah, I understand right now there's directors, the budget, 387. That's not.
And then have an enforcement officer there.
That's a question for Eric. Assuming it's closed to the general public.
How would they know about it?
They've known about it the first time.
Advertising or anything? Refer to that to trustee meeting?
Yeah, I'll take that under advisement. The first meeting, there were a few, and then the second meeting, there were a few different ones, not board members, and there was some frustration about that, but you're gonna let somebody take that. You can't pick and choose. So it's either all or nothing, I think. And I don't know how to. Understand. Understand.
Item 12.
Well, 2.7 million gallon loss, self-contained roads on both ways. That really, increased the loss. I calculated about a 29% increase. And I presume it's mostly because of that.
Correct. For that 1 month. Correct.
One time event.
We do look at the, when we do the budget, we look at the, physical year ends. So we do have a couple of strategies, as we report parts of the mine, stuff that I said. They do raise it for the month, but next month you'll see it will go down.
But the trustee meeting, this, I think, we're talking about problem that ended up having to shut down the whole subdivision. Correct. Is there something that can be done to provide that information? You don't have that problem.
Well, they're the ones that know the valves, and so it takes a lot of coordination with Woodland's water. You know what our valves shut off? Woodland's water is that they're shut off. So when we went out, they did isolate the ones that we thought they were. But apparently there was a valve that could not be found. That was eventually found to keep the subdivision. Other valves over time, as we find them in Woodland's water, we'll raise them, we'll GPS and we'll mark them, identify them. There's still valves out there that were installed 20, 30, 40 years ago that nobody knows. So it takes a lot of digging and excavating, scratching, you know, for those of an area, we know there's no valve there. We do have a way what we call it, valve. That way we can stop water before we stop this.
And that's pretty dramatic. They're right in the middle of the road.
Then we move on to 13, consider an act on additional research by Sept to the AC water lease. All right, so there is no formal action on tonight. What we're looking for is a consensus, a straw poll of the directors to see what y'all are thinking. So at the trustees meeting last Wednesday, Ed gave a very detailed report on the AC water lines. That summary can be found on page 40. I'm going to hit the highlights of that. But basically, since 2017, we've been talking about AC water lines, but especially since about April of this year, we've been talking quite a bit about AC water lines. So the grid authorities heard a lot of opinions, a lot of comments, a lot of questions, thoughts, so on and so forth. So what we've done, what it's proposing is to make all of the AC water lines. No construction, then currently on the way, we'll not go forward with any construction, AC water line replacements. We will not do any additional design. So the town center line is currently underway. We keep that contract to finish that design. So we do all construction, all design, and only move forward with the AC water line. That's that condition assessment. That's estimated at $3.5 million in 4 years. That's just a rough estimate at this point in time. Once we get a consensus of the budget that says, yes, we want you to go this way or we want you to go that way, if y'all say go down the condition assessment path, then the entities team will form a RFP request for qualifications. Look for a consultant to help us identify how much is this truly going to cost, and what are we going to do, and how long will it take. Well, that is basically the majority of the ace of mine conversation is we're looking for consensus. This is about 67, go forward, then it's looking for a consultant to help us identify the condition assessment. Or if you're at 67 has been.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from that. So, for our board, I'd say we've had very little stuff about this. Didn't give me much direction, so I pretty much, acted on my own beliefs and understands. And the comment that I made at the trustee meeting representing 567. So I think, but the important thing was that I just recommended that the vote testing is necessary at this point. You guys need to weigh in on that. Like never.
Why are you doing the focus and other assessments?
It's a lot of time. No, Woodlands has been like 2 years in a row, been rated the top city in the United States for the movie, there's some expectations, all different life, education, shores, business, amenities, infrastructure, water lines. They don't want to talk about it. They want to hear about it. Plus, they want to get their water in the tap and be able to live out and have decent meal or go to the mall and not thinking about such a shut down. And I, for one, I'll be surprised when the data comes in that we learn anything should happen. That's my non-engineering.
Let's make.
I'm not an engineer, and I'll add some of the same questions. You always have assumptions when you make any type of decisions. Most cases. I'm just curious, how much money needs to be spent to reduce those assumptions that inform the decision? So is that $3.5 million? Is that $1 million? Is it $20 million? I don't think there's enough money to get all the answers.
There's some directors, there is no amount of money.
Agreed. Entirely.
There was conversation at 2 other MUD meetings, where 67 was mentioned in there as wanting to get together with the presidents of Metro and 67 to talk about. No, okay. But the comments were related to the significant value that's associated with the Metro region as a whole and what this could be run in postponing the Nancy lines and the house. So I assumed that they had spoken with you. They had noted that in their meetings, that they had requested a meeting of the 3 presidents.
Well, unrelated meeting, somebody made a comment that there was a certain record that was going to try to coordinate with the others. It's entirely approved. That's all I know.
That is what's being, that's the five that have property in the metro center that would be impacted by a great. Have what alternatives there might be for those districts to be proposed to the trustees. From talk about. From those previous. That's a chance in a period in terms of city that. I can tell you, it's being certainly a very high consequence. All of that. That's what you can see. That's what was driving. These lines already haven't been identified. the river authority and perception that towns that are very high cost. Homes, the concentration of that, commercial businesses, that really being the focus from the outside.
All the different, and what it takes, it's a cost of value conversation.
Pretty subjective, but I'd be interested. It's fine for those who go to the. Right, we're trying for much, is where we are. Shouldn't have data. Could be maybe could be. And what do you know? What do you learn?
Any other comments? All much more, involved. Trust fall. Two items before we take this subject. One, got to mention in this bag up here is a piece of AC pipe. Just wanted to bring one around. We don't have to much of everything there, but we're still open. It does contain asbestos. But a lot of people have not seen AC pipe. I don't see plastic and stuff like that. But you want to see it, what we're talking about, the actual material different. So, yeah.
Yeah, one thing real quick on that is from a recent rate, we pulled, approximately 10 feet of AC pipe out of the ground during that and have it stored in our facility now to do future, destructive testing on. You know, we talked about that opportunistic sampling that could be done when we have break or when we have project. Pull pipe out of the ground for that. So we're just storing it right now to actually we can get a consultant what it tells us what the best for. And what to do with that data. So we are being proactive in that opportunistic sampling that we discussed presenting at creating. The second question, super walls and south. Essentially, running the along the. I got it. This part of the North Town Center line. So that's the second mission. And the break was not contractor, it was actually ground movement. Because it was the picture of background, our pipe, just said, there you go. Right. Last thing I had was just want to make you aware we have uploaded dozens of documents to Google Drive. Dated AC water lines, all the various articles that have been presented to us and talked about. There's AWWA articles, there's Water Research Foundation articles that are peer reviewed. Got a lot of the questions from their fund directors and our AC water line that we've done today. And responses to all those on there, some maps, some other things like that, some goals. Anything that you want to look at, is that one where that it is up there. Look through it, got additional questions, feel free to reach out there. That's all we got. Number 15. Received the update regarding the status of the Bear Branch Panther Branch and research towards drive drain project and authorizing connection.
Greg Raylan and Conrad Goodman. I have Greg Lushmore with me. Greg's the project manager on this for SJRN. Page 27 of the packet. That's a one page of the Greg put together. So I'm just going to summarize some of the highlights. Really, the gist of it is that LJA has completed their draft alternatives analysis memorandum report. And so right now we've got it in our hands, with water having in our hands, and we're providing comments. We did meet last Tuesday, and we talked about the draft, talked about some of the elements. Brought up, I think we're going to ask them to do a little bit more modeling on one slightly different scenario. But all in all, you know, we were able to review their alternatives. We was the, were the recommended alternatives having an impact? And, on the areas for us. Yes, yes, we have. The degrees to which we're still talking about that, there's some, talking that, but absolutely there is a positive effect. That's kind of where we are. We'll provide comments, promptly. And, we meet again in early October, and I think at that point, we will have received responses, related to our comments, and that's what our conversation. I don't know without our question, but
I recall there was an additional item that added, is a scope to work. But that's there already regarding the dam.
yes, sir.
Has that information been?
Yes, sir. You'll see it on your one page of theirs. It's the second item, under progress mode.
Absolutely.
They completed their, brief analysis, I guess, a very, short analysis, high level analysis of the spillway. And I think the whole objective, okay, they've done all their modeling under the, with Atlas 14 rainfall, new threshold for rainfall. Everything. And so what general, we know we have to replace the spillway. What general configuration we give us, that'll be, back downstream water. So that's kind of what they gave us. The memorandum, calls out a very rectangular shape, clear, overflow spillway. And so that's basically all we really asked them for. And so we're, again, like the alternatives analysis, we're just reviewing their document right now, providing comment to that.
That result in any construction work in the existing dam?
It will,
So if you may recall, we have another large project out there that we got appropriations through contract for. That is the dam spillway replacement and the upstream soils and everything. So Estre is currently coordinating with a selected consultant that will form that design. We're trying to get that project out by the end of the year. Also, that our side reporting the board that you're done. That is progressing, but I know that the consultant will get a form. Actually going to be given to our consultant as a reference document. So like what was very pressing, we don't want any adverse impact downstream or upstream by reconfiguring the existing building. Planning to go back with a different configuration, but on hydraulic side is equal to what's out there.
so the short story, this will be provided to the consultant for them to use in their design.
So it's positive by December 29th. What's the next step?
So one step in between of that is we do plan to just all and one might be the others getting money for this project. We give a presentation sometime in late October, early November. Present to you called the final draft of those technical memorandums and the results. And then through that discussion, if you got questions, we'll wrap all that up by the end of the year, 29th. And if things result are what the goals and objectives of the projects, next step would be going into more of putting everything in conversation.
Hopefully the progress we made in October, we'll know when to start putting the presentation together. And we'll post it with the results.
The gentleman.
Sure, just a couple things I have, wanted to, let everyone know that, the last day was last Thursday. So it's, no longer here. It's at WA. We are planning to do a reception for, probably the next month or so. On details and dates and stuff, so we'll get that information out to you. We'll probably be in the come and go type of thing. So that's coming. wanted to point out in the packet, you see some things on area-wide municipalities talking about drought, increased drought restrictions. I'm happy to report that the one not have to go into increased drought restrictions. That's largely in part due to all the work that was done over the last decade or so to get surface water here, where a lot of municipalities are really struggling right now. And the good news is you know, the weather's cooling down a little bit, a little bit of rain coming, so we haven't had to go in there, and it doesn't look like we will. So that's good news. Wanted to point out a few of these. We continue to get thank yous from customers. I really like seeing those. Takes a lot for someone to go to the next level and give a thank you, just because, you know, it takes a little effort, and so we don't take those lightly. And then finally, I just wanted to kick it over to John and give him let him give an update on public outreach.
John, gracious enough to let me jump back in. There was something I forgot to share with you. This is just an example. You recently helped us, cover those things of replacing the valve box at their branch. And you know good and well about some of the vandalism that we've incurred. So we just wanted to give an example. That's just from last week. You can see where they've taken some sort of a pry bar and tried to pry it open. They weren't successful, but they sure damaged it. Set fireworks off or something on top. So it's just it's a continuous battle. We do have the cameras. The thing I really wanted to update you on tonight is that we're now engaging law enforcement. So we're talking to the sheriff's office. We've already spoken with the gang warden. So we're going to try to get more regular rounds and try to start setting some examples.
The damage here, what's the cost to repair that?
We have not gotten far enough to look. The fireworks stuff, that's not, that's. I think we're gonna be able to expand that, I think, and consider it. So I don't think it's gonna be a future step for that. Yes,
What do you think the rationale is? Am I trying to pry that open?
I think it's being, it's, I didn't say that. I mean, you know, there's nothing that's worth in there. In fact, that's when we made the modification, we had some safety factors, so at least before they could throw something to the bottom, they can't anymore. There's a rack there, so. The unknown, what's in there?
Just curious.
Just have a communications report on page 35 of the packets. I'm going to zero in this month on communication we're seeing throughout the community. Share that with you. What we're seeing here. Largely it revolves around the drought. From the drought. Of course, with drought, you get higher consumption. Water escapes, so water goes up. As our water goes up, our folks start to scrutinize their bills more closely and ask more questions and talk, especially across social media platforms. And that is both positive, an opportunity to help folks understand their bill better, how they're arrived at, and their water system. It's also a challenge in that we see a lot of misinformation spread. Gap of understanding. We get lumped in with other providers, their policies, their rates. We see that a lot of folks really don't make that strong connection between assumptions and dollar amount. Why is my bill so high? I said, well, bill with your dues. I'm guessing that. A lot of times they think the rates have gone up. They can get a leak or there's error billing. Almost always the fact that it's realize how much water. But again, that's an opportunity for us to go in there and help those folks understand how to bring those bills down, get them tools to do so. Water smart being the primary one, push water smart on. A lot of questions about surface water conversion. Why is that on the bill? What's that all about? And then a lot of questions around the define your category. So even though that's been in place continually for 10 years, our percentage of the community exists, or is confused about it, or is upset about it. They do know about it, but their neighbors aren't following it, their senators aren't following it. So they're upset, why should I follow it? And then a lot of folks think they can't keep their lawns on 2 nights of water. Blends. More education on that. So that- All right, website, for August, so August 36, still performing very well. August was our second highest month ever for traffic. We saw 13,000 plus visitors on the website. So even if you visit 20 times, you still just counted one. That's good. That's a good percentage of our customer base. We did rebrand our weekly e-blast. It's now Woodland Water Weekly, based off the contest we ran. A successful customer engagement tool, and we came out with a better name. So keep tuned into that. Lots of good information comes through that. I think a lot of our other info and social media posts. You'll see that on page 37, we've shifted our focus toward value. We're now in the fourth quarter of our plan to focus water conservation to value. Abandoning the other messages, on value, public folks appreciate the reliability, they enjoy quality, they enjoy my water. So this being magazine, always a major tool for us. We will have an article coming out the first month there. And October, then November will be helping folks understand the water. And then finally on page 38, some statistics there on Water Smart. And that is probably the single best tool we have for helping customers keep their use down, keep their bills down, and how they use their water. Lots of other resources embedded in that tool. 10% of all our accounts are active. Water Smart. They've been on it at least once in the last 90 days. So lots of room to improve. Our commercial numbers, 20% of all our commercial accounts are Water Smart registered. So, again, lots of room to improve. Infrastructure communications, consultant, that process continues to move forward. Eric and Jerry will be meeting with Holloway. Week over their first meeting. The process will move forward from there. There'll be needs assessment. And we'll keep you updated on all that progress. That is primarily focused on our infrastructure. And finally, you've got a calendar there on our upcoming fall in-person outreach events. Join it. Make it one of those you're always invited, of course. Great way to talk with folks. And what their questions are, and then with that, any questions? I think they got so much.
Paul, questions? I don't know, talking about using water lines, but I think it's also much to get better. I would like to recommend that municipal utility district number 67 provide a letter of appreciation for exiting expenses. I don't know if that other requests in prior meetings just we can do that with
We do want to keep it kind of quiet, but because it's a surprise, but we were going to be doing something on behalf of all of the but we're happy to do something separate as well.
well, let's, like I had this over time and satisfied our needs. Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Okay, then recess to process. Any matter to be placed on future agenda? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Yeah.